welcome to the Bell Performance video blog. And today we're going to talk about electric cars. Now, over the last year or two, electric cars have become kind of a popular topic. You hear about them more and more, and you hear about ones like the Chevy Volt, the Nissan Leaf. Of course, you have heard about hybrids, which are not all electric cars, but rather they are cars that kind of split time between using gasoline to get them up to speed, and then once the engine is up to speed, say you're on the highway, switches over to electric. So it uses a combination of gasoline and electricity, so that it's called a hybrid. Electric cars have become more and more, at least more and more known in the marketplace because of the trend in the last 5 years or so for people thinking more and more about green environmental issues. They want to be friendlier for the environment. They want to leave less of a carbon footprint. They want to be better citizens of the world, so to speak. But as much as we want to think that we always come up with new and novel ideas, on the contrary, for this particular thing, electric cars, those have actually been around since, well, basically as long as cars have been around. If you go back to the 1890s, electric cars really, they were the best performing vehicles. They held all of the land speed records and the distance records. In fact, the first car to break the 60-mile-an-hour barrier, that was an electric car. So it wasn't really until late in the 1900s, the Model T started becoming popular, but you had some technological advancements like the invention of the electric starter. That was one of the things that really helped the internal combustion engine start to overtake electric cars. But before that happened, electric cars were much more popular than you might think. What they used to have things like, the limitation of the battery life, the range of the car. That's one of the things that holds electric cars back today. People, you might get 100, 150 miles on a charge. Well, people back in 1890 or 1895 had exactly the same observances and exactly the same concerns about electric cars. One of the things I used to do, for example, is I used to have a battery exchange program. There was a pretty popular program where drivers would be able to exchange their batteries at given locations for a fresh battery pack, and they kind of had a subscription to this service where they would pay a monthly fee, and then they would also pay a small fee per mile that they traveled. And this was a very popular program, and it kind of started dying out, or really died out around, let's say 1924. By that time, you had over 6 million miles that had been logged by drivers using this kind of innovative program. Now, like we said, if you think of electric cars and you think of their advantages and their disadvantages over regular internal combustion vehicles, what would you think of? You think of, well, electric cars are quieter, they're better for the environment, they're cleaner, they don't give off as many nasty fumes. On the flip side, what are the disadvantages? Well, you're not quite so sure that how far you're going to be able to go. So limited range and what they call longer refueling times. Gasoline-powered cars, you could pull up to the gas station and you're in and out, in a few minutes. Electric cars have to take time to charge. Now, those are the advantages and disadvantages most people today, in the 21st century, would think of. But back in the late 19th century, people recognized exactly the same problems. Now, another similarity between then and now is that, let's see, how do we want to put this? The clientele that tended to buy cars. The clientele that tend to buy the all-electric cars today tend to be people who have a lot of money, people who can afford the novelty somewhat of this new vehicle that is really good for the environment, but is a little bit unusual and very, very expensive compared to gasoline-powered cars. The Chevy Volt will cost you at least $35,000. Back, I want to say 2005, there was a motor company named Tesla. Yes, named after the inventor and the guy who worked with electric current. The Tesla Motor Company came out with a really high-powered performance all-electric car. I don't know exactly what its top speed was, but certainly looked like a sports car that could go from 0 to 60 in not very many seconds flat. That one cost well over $100,000. They stopped manufacturing that a few years ago, but in 2011, the Tesla Motor Company decided that they were going to do kind of another version of it that was a little bit more economic, still high-performance electric car, and that one costs $56,000. So, electric cars are not cheap, and so who are the kinds of people that tend to buy them? They tend to be people, well, at the risk of throwing out some stereotypes, they tend to be upwardly mobile people who have a lot of money, and thus can afford to buy an electric car. Well, you go back to the 1890s, 1900s, who were the people that tended to buy them? They tended to be rich people, had a lot of money, and they tended to be a lot of women, married couples, because the upper class women found that it was an excellent status symbol and a great convenience to have what they would call a city car, an electric car that they could just drive short distances around the dirty, noisy city where they wouldn't be polluting. They would have the convenience of the quiet car and the status of having this cool electric car. You can argue how much of a status symbol it is today, but that's one thing that has not changed. The fact that people who really, electric cars have not yet busted into the mainstream. Now, there are a number of reasons why. There are, as we said before, the recognized limitations. There are the costs, and that's something that the market's just going to have to play out. And if they ever hope to have electric cars make a meaningful impact into the automobile market, because last year in 2011 there were 13 million new cars sold in the United States. The Chevy Volt and the Nissan Leaf, both of those most popular, most mainstream electric motor models sold less than 10,000 units each. So that's a big hurdle that the motor company is going to have to overcome if the electric car is to make a meaningful impact into the automobile market today. So that's today's topic on electric cars. Thanks for joining us with the Bell Performance Video Blog, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.